I've made hundreds of thumbnails for this channel, so I reckon I've got a decent sense of what makes a thumbnail strong or weak. For example, these videos that I made haven't got very many views recently, so today I'm going to see if I can use AI to make the thumbnails more enticing. Then I'm going to put them to the test to find out whether my new thumbnails or the originals are best. So the AI assisted software that I'm using today is called Luminar Neo, and they've sponsored this video, but they haven't given me a script to follow. I'm just going to show you my process for using it to improve my thumbnails. So the first thing I'm going to do is boost the saturation of specific colours. I'm going to bring some more life to the blues, greens, and a little bit of yellow. Then I can go to the hue control to make the greens even more lush. Now I'm going to add a really strong vignette just while I position it to draw attention to the centre of the image, and then I'll make it more subtle. I reckon we can improve the sky, so I'm going to use the Mask AI feature, which will scan the frame and guess what's in the image. It's detected that there's a human, and it's also given me the chance to select the sky. So now when I add contrast, it's only affecting that area. I'll darken it a bit and reduce the saturation because otherwise it's too much flavour. And the final touch for the sky is some noise reduction. Okay, so we've got a more eye-catching image, but YouTube thumbnails need to be crystal clear. So I'm going to use the Mask AI again, this time selecting the human so I can brighten myself up. Then I'll bring down the highlights and reduce the contrast so we have detail in the shadows. I don't think I need my backpack to be so bright, so I'm going to go back to my mask and use the brush tool to paint that out. Now that I've done that, I reckon really I should paint out everything except for my face and hands. That's much better. And then the last touch is to tidy up that small error from the AI mask. I feel like the new version has more of a focal point, more shape, and the colours are definitely more vivid. So there we go. I'm really curious to find out if anyone thinks this is worse than the original thumbnail, but let's do another one first. Now when it comes to this thumbnail, I really don't like the colours. But before we fix the colours, I've got to crop this. It's for a video that's comparing different camera setups, so let's make the camera as big as possible in the frame. Then I can use the erase tool to clean up the edges. Since it takes a split second for viewers to decide if they're clicking or not, I don't want to leave anything to chance. For colour, I'll use the enhance tool as a starting point and then add some contrast, brighten the whole image, and then take the highlights down since I'm wearing a really bright t-shirt. Then I'm going to increase the vibrance until I'm happy with my skin tones, and I'll fix that nasty blue problem next. So first I'll warm up the image since this is supposed to be sunset, and then I'll head over to the colour tool and deal with those oversaturated blues. If I lower the saturation of the blues only, we can hold on to the richness of the greens and reds. But we have lost the blue in this handle, so I'm going to paint it out with a quick mask. The final touch for colour is to change the hue of the yellows and greens to warm them up. Now we've got even more of a sunset look. Okay, so let's try the Relight AI feature, which basically guesses what's in the foreground and the background. Then I can easily darken the background so that I stand out more. Let's add some atmosphere with this fog effect so that my hair doesn't blend into the trees. And then with the Face AI tool, I can quickly add some light to my face. Now to really sell that sunset look, I'm going to use the Sun Rays tool. I'll turn it way up to start with just so I can see what I'm doing, and then it's basically a case of experimenting with the different parameters before I dial it back to be more subtle. But even so, these sun rays are a bold look, so I definitely wouldn't use them for every image. And then the final touch is adding some film grain to tie it all together. We've taken a bland shot and made it more vibrant. Okay, I'm really happy with that one. Now, if that doesn't pass the test, then I guess I'll have to question everything I know. But let's do another one, because in this image I look so green and the white walls behind me are distracting. So to make myself stand out, I'm going to start by adding some light to my face, and then we can even enhance my eyes, adding some contrast so they really pop. Here's the before and the after. Then I'm going to use the Relight tool to create more contrast between me and the background. And to seal the deal, let's go to the Mask AI feature and let it scan the image. It's automatically made this mask, so when I increase the saturation and tint towards magenta, it doesn't affect the background at all. Nice. I'll add a little vignette to finish, and I can confidently say that I'm no longer blending into the background. But we can take it even further by using a background that tells a story. If I head over to the Portrait Background Removal tool, it's going to cut me out from the background. I'll just grab the refinement brush to do a very quick tidy up, and we'll be ready to add a new background layer. Now, since this video was about a documentary shoot, I want the thumbnail to show who I was filming with. I'm going to tweak the colors and add a vignette to this layer, and then I'm going to add a third layer so we can see a camera that shows it's a behind the scenes video. I'll use the portrait background removal again, and even though it's not a person, the algorithm did manage to cut out most of the background, and I could tidy up the edges without needing to zoom in. I just tell it approximately where the edges are, and the software seems to figure out what to do. Almost done. I'll just tweak the colors of the camera, boosting the saturation so it stands out, and then I'll use a quick vignette to darken my t-shirt a bit, and there we go. I think we can agree those colors are definitely eye-catching. So this is the last one before we do the test, and I have to say, I don't know what I was thinking. Everything on the right kind of blends together, especially when you look at it small. It's really hard to see what's going on. So we've definitely got to fix this. First up, let's use the relight tool to darken the background. Already, that's made a huge difference. Then I'm going to jump to the mask AI tool so it'll scan the image for people. Now we can select him with one click. I'll paint out his face and his hands from the mask because all I want to do is darken his t-shirt. So now the mask is set up, I can lower the exposure and even desaturate his shirt. Here's the before and the after. Then I'm going to go over to the hue controls for the image overall and just push the yellows away from green so they're warmer. Then I'll add some contrast and brighten the image slightly, and I'm happy with that. Now I took this picture of a camera for the second layer since this video was about how to film interviews. So I'll cut out the background again, but you've seen this before, so I'll just skip through it. And now let's adjust the contrast and the exposure of the camera to match the rest of the image. Then we've just got to extend the background, so I'll add a third layer and put it on the bottom of the stack, and it's basically just a stretched copy of the background. Once I've put a simple mask on the second layer, you'd never know that it was a fake background. I think that's much better than the original. I don't have to squint to figure out what's going on anymore. Okay, so I think I'm happy with my updated thumbnails, but who knows, maybe I've made them worse. So to find out, I've asked my friend Danny if he will judge my thumbnails. I'm going to show him the original thumbnails and the new ones side by side, and then he's going to point at the one that he would click on. 3, 2, 1.
Left. The right one. The right one. I think the right one is what got me.
So that's a 50% success rate. Not exactly what I was hoping for, but you know what, let's learn from this. Danny actually gave me some ideas for how to improve those thumbnails. So I'm using the brush tool to create a quick mask around the camera screen, and that means I can increase the exposure and bring some color and life to that screen. Then I'll repeat the process, drawing a different mask around the colorful reflection in the camera's viewfinder. And now I'm curious to see if this thumbnail will be more clickable. And then looking at this thumbnail, Danny was saying it's quite a lot going on with the kind of 3 different focal points to choose from. So let's simplify it. I decided to enlarge the camera, so this becomes a much simpler thumbnail, just me and the camera. I then used the same technique to remove the background, and there we have it. Okay, so now it's time for the real test. I'm going to ask my patrons to vote A or B on each of the thumbnails for the new one or the original, and hopefully this time we can get more than 50% of the votes on my new thumbnails. Otherwise, this whole thing would have been a bit of a waste of time. So here are the results. Okay, so looking at the votes, it's not a huge sample size, but you know what? The new thumbnails got the votes. That is a huge relief. It means that I can call it a day. So I'm going to swap out those thumbnails and let's see if that makes any difference to the YouTube algorithm. And before I go, I just want to say a genuine thanks to Luminar Neo for sponsoring this video. You can find out more about the software that I've been using in the link in the description. So yeah, thanks very much for watching as well, and I'll see you soon.